Have you ever watched someone get the mic turned on them and then watch the host unleash? What happens when politeness takes a coffee break and confrontation moves into the spotlight? We're diving into 15 jaw-dropping moments when TV hosts went from interviewer to ringmaster and their guests got caught in the crossfire. Stay with me because towards the end, we'll reveal one confrontation so epic it nearly rewrote talk show rules. Piers Morgan. The calm before the storm. Until the storm hit, picture a primetime news segment, sharp lighting, serious tone. Piers Morgan invited a guest to argue a point, but it turned into something much more volatile. On one notable occasion in early 2013, Morgan confronted his guest over a heated debate on gun laws.
Do you understand? That's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows, no matter how much propaganda.
The guest turned the tables, launching into a tirade about national identity, ancestral rights, and revolution-style rhetoric. Morgan for once seemed caught off guard, not the usual aggressor, but the recipient of full-on fire. The clip blew up online as an example of how even a seasoned host can be outgunned by charisma, irritability, and sheer unpredictability.
Thousands are getting stabbed.
Right. But do you understand
ban
the
knives?
difference?
The knife doesn't kill people.
Do you
The gun
understand?
doesn't kill people.
Yes.
It's more than a shouting match, it's a showbiz turning point. The host loses control, the guest rants, the audience flinches. In short, this moment showed that talk shows aren't safe zones, they're battlegrounds. Morgan's image for control cracked that night. It proved that even the interviewer can become the interviewee in chaos. Geraldo Rivera. Chairs flying, jaws dropping. In the late 1980s, talk shows were still experimenting with shock formats, and Geraldo Rivera hosted one of the most infamous ones. On an episode in 1988, his guests included self-described skinheads, white supremacists, activists, and journalist Rivera himself.
Yo, gotta make it. Hey, hold it. Hold it. Sit down.
What started as an uneasy panel turned ugly fast. Chairs were thrown. Rivera's nose was reportedly broken. The live audience and the cameras captured raw pandemonium. The scandalous nature of it changed the talk show game. The host, once the moderator, was now smack in the middle of the melee. The spectacle became defining. Rivera didn't just ask questions, he was part of a scene nobody expected. The fallout? Higher ratings for sure, but also a permanent mark on how far live TV could push the envelope. Rivera's show that night proved talk TV could be a live grenade, not just a polite debate. Cathy Newman. Aggressive questions, viral reactions. In a world where verbal sparring is the norm, Cathy Newman defined what happens when an interviewer is relentless. In a widely viewed segment, she grilled a guest over issues of gender and identity, pressing metaphors, repeating questions, refusing to step back. The guest tried to answer, but Newman kept pivoting, challenging each response and framing it as a trap.
Sorry, your critics get lambasted by you. I mean,
If
isn't
they're
that
academics,
irresponsible?
not at all. If an academic is going to come
Okay.
after me and tell me that I'm not qualified and that I don't know what I'm talking about,
It became so intense that clips of the exchange exploded on social media, some praising her tenacity, others accusing her of ambush journalism. The set was calm, but the tone turned hostile. The interview placed the guest on the defensive from start to finish. For viewers, it was uncomfortable and captivating. Newman nailed one thing: talk shows aren't cozy chats. They're high-stakes, verbal sparring matches where tone matters as much as content. Newman showed that the host doesn't just ask, they can dominate the narrative and turn the guest into the subject of scrutiny. Bill O'Reilly. The host becomes the interrogator. Bill O'Reilly carved his niche as a talk show host, unafraid to go toe-to-toe. On numerous occasions, he invited guests under the guise of debate, but what followed resembled an interrogation. Rapid-fire questions, interruptions tone that shifted from calm to combative in seconds. One memorable segment had the guest attempting to answer a policy question only to be cut off mid-sentence, challenged on suspicious logic, and told repeatedly to clarify in simpler terms.
Counseled, you need to be coddled. The guard is going to do all of that.
The host's body language, tone, and pacing all contributed to a feeling. You're on the hot seat. For audiences, it's thrilling. For guests, it's survival. O'Reilly didn't just moderate, he pressed, probed, and provoked. By the end of the segment, the guest looked exhausted, the viewer felt tension, and O'Reilly walked away having controlled the narrative. O'Reilly proved the talk show host can be less conductor and more interrogator, and sometimes the guest pays the price. Bill Maher versus Ben Affleck. When debate turned into a shouting match, most talk shows try to spark spirited debate, but few melt down like this one. In 2014, actor Ben Affleck appeared on Real Time with Bill Maher to discuss religion and politics. What started as a polite round table turned volcanic within minutes. Maher criticized religious extremism. Affleck fired back, calling the remarks gross and racist. Voices rose, interruptions piled up, and the tension was electric.
On the part of these people, I'm willing to flatly condemn those of you I don't know and have never met.
Maher tried to reason, but Affleck leaned forward, visibly angry, his voice cutting through the studio noise. "It's disgusting. You're stereotyping." The audience gasped. Panelists froze. Maher, normally in command, was now in a full verbal fistfight on his own show. The exchange lasted less than 5 minutes, but felt like 10 rounds of live television combat. Clips of the clash spread worldwide within hours, reigniting debates about free speech, faith, and civility in media. It wasn't scripted, it was raw emotion colliding with opinion under bright studio lights. That night proved that even seasoned hosts can lose the reins when a guest refuses to play nice television gold born out of chaos. Wendy Williams versus Omarosa. The daytime feud that exploded on live TV. Daytime talk shows usually trade in light laughter and celebrity chatter, but in 2008, the Wendy Williams show turned into a verbal battleground. Wendy Williams invited former Apprentice star Omarosa Manigault to discuss her new book. Within seconds, sparks flew. Wendy opened with a sly jab about Omarosa's reputation, and Omarosa fired back, questioning Wendy's credibility as a host. The smiles disappeared fast. Wendy accused her of dodging accountability. Omarosa clapped back about Wendy's gossip-driven career.
Beginning of the negotiation. That's when you really start to put in the work to get what you want.
The studio audience gasped and cheered as the two women talked over each other, voices rising, both refusing to yield. At one point, Wendy leaned forward, finger pointed, her tone cutting. "You can't intimidate me." Omarosa shot back, "Honey, you already look scared." It was no scripted stunt, just pure tension caught on tape. Producers later said they debated cutting parts, but the footage aired unedited, cementing the moment as one of daytime TV's most infamous clashes. That exchange proved you don't need late-night drama or shock radio to create TV fireworks. Sometimes all it takes is two strong personalities and one unfiltered stage. Don Lemon. Sudden escalation from polished anchor to pointed crossfire. Don Lemon, long a familiar face on television news, has had segments where the tone sharply shifts and a guest becomes the target. In one such episode, Lemon asked a political figure about accountability. The conversation started normally. Then Lemon challenged a statistic the guest offered, calmly at first, then with rising intensity. He quoted facts, cut off evasions, and asked, "So are you saying..."
I know, but why don't you? You said you don't watch me, but yet you know who I am, and I get put up.
Before I realized that CNN and MSNBC were full of shit, every once in a while I'd see
What do you watch?
talking.
Before the guest responded. The guest began stumbling. Lemon's tone remained steady, but the pace quickened. His facial expression sharpened. Viewers sensed the change. This was no longer a casual chat. It was a confrontation. At the close, the guest seemed relieved to finish the segment. Lemon had seized control. Lemon showed how a seemingly standard interview can escalate into cross-examination when a host switches from affable to firm and the guest doesn't always recover. Dr. Phil versus Shelley Duvall. When empathy turned into exploitation, television audiences expected Dr. Phil to be firm but compassionate. But in 2016, he aired an interview that left many questioning his ethics. The guest was Shelley Duvall, the once celebrated star of The Shining, who had been living far from Hollywood and clearly struggling. Instead of comfort, viewers saw a host pressing her with blunt, unsettling questions about her mental state. Duvall responded with disjointed remarks, and rather than easing the tension, Dr. Phil pushed harder, asking if she realized how she appeared to others. The audience fell silent.
What time is it? I don't agree to work 24 hours a day for anybody, and that includes...
What was meant to be a help segment looked more like public exposure. Within hours, the clip went viral and the backlash was swift. Fellow actors and mental health advocates condemned the show for turning human pain into spectacle. Vivian Kubrick, daughter of director Stanley Kubrick, called it exploitative beyond belief. Networks replayed the footage. Social media demanded the episode be pulled. Dr. Phil later claimed he had offered treatment off camera, but the damage was done. The exchange became a modern example of how quickly a host's authority can shift from empathy to aggression when ratings overshadow responsibility. The Dr. Phil Duvall episode proved that when sensitivity vanishes from live TV, even a helping hand can look like a shove. Sean Hannity versus Alan Grayson. When a guest got the hard sell from the host, on the night of January 22, 2010, actually 2010 broadcaster Sean Hannity invited Representative Alan Grayson on his show to debate healthcare reform. What started as a standard segment quickly turned into a battle of tone and control. Hannity repeatedly interrupted. Grayson asked for specific names and dates, cut off vague answers, and leaned into the guest's links to liberal activists with sharp questioning. At one point, Grayson began to lose his footing. He tried to steer back to policy, but Hannity pressed him. "So tell me which Democrat leader backs this plan right now," he asked, voice firm. The guest hemmed and hawed. Hannity's polished studio persona dropped a gear. His tone became controlled but edged with impatience. The audience shifted. It was no longer casual commentary. It was confrontation. Within minutes, the clip circulated online as Hannity shuts down Grayson with commentary praising the host's dominance and criticizing the guest's evasiveness. The moment reinforced how talk show hosts can flip from moderator to interrogator in seconds. Hannity showed that on live TV, the guest doesn't just answer questions, they must respond under fire, and when they hesitate, the host steps up the pressure. Megyn Kelly. Composed exterior, ruthless inner engine, Megyn Kelly's style appears calm and professional, but one high-profile segment revealed a different layer. When a former high-ranking politician appeared on her show in 213, Kelly asked him about allegations of misconduct. The guest gave a standard political talk answer. Kelly let it ride for a moment, then quietly shifted gears. "You've said you stand for, but you also did this." Her voice remained steady. The guest tried to redirect. Kelly held the line. The guest grew visibly uneasy. She didn't raise her voice. Her tone made it sharp. The camera cut to him fidgeting. The studio audience sensed the pivot and leaned in. By the end, the guest looked drained and defensive. Kelly had dismantled the veneer. Kelly demonstrated that a host doesn't need theatrics to dominate, just steady focus, a calm voice, and questions that sting. Tucker Carlson. When a guest flipped the script, Tucker Carlson built his reputation as the sharp, unflinching host who cornered guests into verbal traps. But in 2019, one interview flipped that dynamic upside down. Carlson invited Dutch economist Rutger Bregman to discuss taxes and inequality, expecting a standard sparring session. Instead, Bregman tore into Carlson's network for ignoring systemic wealth issues, accusing him of being part of the problem. Carlson's trademark smirk faded fast.
Yourself, you tiny brain, and I hope this gets picked up. I tried to give you a hearing, but you were too annoying for me.
You can't handle the criticism, can you?
He snapped back, insulted the guest, and abruptly ended the conversation. The footage leaked soon after setting the internet ablaze. Viewers were stunned. For once, Carlson wasn't in control. He was the one losing his composure. Commentators called it the interview that never aired, while others praised Bregman for holding his ground under fire. The moment became a cautionary tale of what happens when a host known for dominance meets a guest unwilling to play by the usual rules. That day, Tucker Carlson learned that even the most seasoned host can be outmaneuvered when confidence turns to temper. Jeremy Paxman. The relentless question machine. Few interviewers ever embodied the word interrogation like Jeremy Paxman. On BBC's Newsnight in the late 1990s, Paxman faced then Home Secretary Michael Howard over a bureaucratic scandal. Most journalists would have moved on after one evasive answer. Paxman asked the same question 12 times. Exactly the same words, same tone, same piercing stare. The tension was unbearable. Howard smiled, deflected, shifted, repeated rehearsed phrases, but Paxman simply began again, methodical and emotionless.
what we had decided about Marriott and why he, that is you, exploded. Simply moving the governor was politically unpalatable. If I did not change my mind and suspend Marriott, he would have to consider overruling me.
It was like watching a courtroom cross-examination with no escape route. The clip became legend taught in journalism schools as a masterclass in persistence. Some called it unfair, others brilliant, but nobody forgot it. The encounter marked a shift in broadcast tone from polite conversation to precision interrogation. Paxman never raised his voice. He didn't have to. His calm was the weapon. Paxman turned silence and repetition into tools of dominance, proving that power in broadcasting isn't volume, it's control. Morton Downey Jr., the original shout show brawler before reality TV chaos in clickbait talk shows, there was Morton Downey Jr., a storm in a suit with a cigarette permanently in hand. In the late 1980s, his talk show didn't just invite controversy, it manufactured it. Guests were berated, heckled, and sometimes physically cornered as Downey shouted inches from their faces. One unforgettable night, a guest insulted him on air. Downey exploded, lunging forward, security rushing in the crowd, cheering like it was a boxing match. Smoke filled the set, insults flew, and television boundaries shattered in real time.
This doesn't cost you $3.
Yes, it does.
Then
you know why?
got swindled.
No.
For audiences, it was shocking. For TV producers, it was ratings gold. Downey became the face of confrontational television, inspiring decades of successors who chased his raw energy. Yet his aggressive style eventually consumed him. Sponsors fled, ratings dipped, and the show ended in scandal. Still, that one clip remains immortal, a reminder that TV's first real explosion didn't come from the guests, it came from the host. Morton Downey Jr. proved that chaos sells, but when you play with fire on live television, it eventually burns you back. Don Imus. When insult radio met the limits of outrage long before viral cancel culture, Don Imus tested the boundaries of public patience on live air. Known for his sharp humor and unscripted digs, his downfall began in 2007 after he made disparaging remarks about a women's college basketball team. What followed was a national uproar unlike anything morning radio had seen. The next broadcast turned into an on-air reckoning. Imus faced civil rights leaders and journalists live debating the very words that had cost him sponsors and respect. Instead of calming the fire, his defensive tone reignited it. Networks debated whether shock radio had finally crossed the line between edgy and unacceptable. Viewers watched the mighty host struggle to justify himself in real time, sweating under his own spotlight. By the end of that week, his show was suspended and eventually canceled. The fallout became a cultural turning point for live broadcasting, proof that words said for laughs can echo far beyond the studio walls. Imus learned that sometimes the biggest blowback in media doesn't come from guests, it comes from your own microphone. Jerry Springer. Where the host became the referee, no talk show, blurred entertainment, and chaos quite like the Jerry Springer Show. What started in the early 1990s as a political talk program quickly morphed into a circus of shouting matches, flying chairs, and live studio mayhem. But in one infamous episode, Springer found himself in the middle, literally. As two guests erupted into a fight, he jumped in to separate them, only to be shoved and nearly caught by a punch. The audience screamed, security charged in, and the moment became legend. Springer brushed it off with his signature grin, ending the segment with his calm line, "We'll be right back." That composure amid madness became his trademark. Behind the scenes, producers later admitted that chaos wasn't planned, but embraced once they saw ratings soar. The incident turned Springer from journalist to cultural phenomenon, making his name synonymous with televised pandemonium. Jerry Springer didn't just host TV's wildest show, he proved that sometimes the calmest man in the room is the one standing in the storm. From newsroom tempers to daytime chaos, these moments proved one thing. No cue card can save a host when real emotion takes over. Whether it's Dr. Phil's cold questions, Tucker Carlson losing control, or Jerry Springer dodging flying chairs, every clip reminds us that live TV isn't scripted, it's survival. Which showdown shocked you most? Drop your pick in the comments, hit subscribe, and share this with someone who loves seeing tension turn viral, because in the world of live broadcasting, calm never lasts long.